Welcome to the Cognitive Crucible, produced by the Information Professionals Association. Our website is information-professionals.org, where you can find links and information about today's conversation and get access to members-only content. Join John Bicknell and explore all aspects of our generational challenge, cognitive security. The Cognitive Crucible is a forum that presents different perspectives and emerging thought leadership related to the information environment. The opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of or endorsement by the Information Professionals Association.
My guest today on the Cognitive Crucible is Master Gunnery Sergeant William Hess, who is the Senior Enlisted Advisor for the Deputy Commandant for Information, and you may hear us refer to this as the DCI, at the headquarters of the United States Marine Corps. He also holds a PhD in information technology with an emphasis in information assurance and cybersecurity. William Hess, welcome to the Cognitive Crucible.
John, I appreciate it, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, I can guarantee you that our audience is looking forward to hearing your perspective on information-related challenges. And I also want to say at the outset here for our audience that Master Gunnery Sergeant Hess's opinions are his own and do not represent the opinions of the Deputy Commandant for Information, the Marine Corps, or the United States government. So, William, could we start this off with you giving us your perspective on our national security landscape?
Absolutely, John. So I know everybody's, it's kind of the buzz line. Everybody talks about it. China is the pacing threat. It's been thrown out there in the media, in the news. The DoD is definitely moving in that direction, coming out of CENTCOM over the last 20 plus years. And for the Marine Corps specifically, it's definitely a focus area of our new force design initiative. We're definitely aligning a lot of resources and capability sets towards the China problem set. The advancement of China and them coming into the world as a peer competitor is a very real problem that it's not just a US problem, it's becoming a world problem. So as a Marine Corps, we're definitely pivoting towards the ability to counter some of those capability sets.
I want to ask a little bit about your expertise, and we read in your bio just a moment ago about your expertise in information assurance and cybersecurity. I believe you also have deep expertise in incident response management, compliance, and other network and security controls. Some in our audience may be unfamiliar with these topics and how they relate to information operations. Could you just give us a beat on all of that?
No, absolutely, John. I appreciate the question. So information assurance, otherwise known as cybersecurity, is extremely prevalent within any country that's digitally connected like the United States of America. The threat landscape within the digital environment is perverse. China, as within open source, is prevalent in their conduct of cyber espionage and cyber attacks against the U.S. but multiple countries across the world. They leverage that their cyber capabilities in all aspects to drive their economy and to advance their civilization. So cybersecurity is extremely important for industry within the United States, but also just you and me at home, our Wi-Fi connections, home computers. The privacy of our information, the privacy of our identities is crucial in this day and age because of the adversarial threat, not just from China. Russia is also extremely prevalent in the cyber world as well, and that's part of the reason why cybersecurity is so important. Is it's a very low, from an economical standpoint, it's a very low cost to get into this world. You're able to, create dramatic effects within the environment and gain a lot of ground with a very small footprint of, both money and resources to get after the end state that you're looking for. So from a cybersecurity standpoint, the ability to secure yourself, the data, your identity it's becoming one of the most crucial aspects of not just the military, but any digitalized civilization needs to think about this in order to advance. The Marine Corps is, over the last 2 years has created a network modernization to completely revolutionize the way we do digital aspects and IT, information technology. And a key component of that is what we call development, security, and operations. It's called DevSecOps. It's it's not a new terminology, but it's a new for the Marine Corps in our application of how we secure our applications and secure our data. And through network modernization and advancing into cloud architectures and really bringing in the speed and the efficiency that cloud can bring to bear is going to be huge from the Marine Corps. It's got implications into a new aspect that the Commandant just launched called talent management, and the ability to use AI and various other aspects of technology to really advance the way the Marine Corps does day-to-day operations in order to generate mission outcomes.
Yeah, fantastic for explaining all of that. And I definitely want to ask a little bit more about that new talent management plan. But by the way, we're recording this on November 4th, 2021, and that talent management strategy just came out in the last day or two. But before we move on to that, we chatted before this, William, and I mentioned to you that previously we had an episode with the former president of Estonia, Mr. Toomas Hendrik Ilves. Really interesting. I suggest to our audience to go back and listen to that episode. We'll have a link in the show notes. But it seems like we are taking a page from the Estonian playbook. They famously, they had a major cyber incident that affected their entire country back in 2007. Russia, but it was a Russian cyber attack. What's your comment on all that? Do you think that we could learn something from Estonia?
Oh, absolutely. So the Estonian attack back in 2007 was really one of the first linkages between cyberspace operations and kinetic operations. The idea of using cyberspace and crippling a country from an economic standpoint by shutting down their banks and their ATMs, their ability to pull out money, to shutting off their government websites so information couldn't translate from the government to the people, affecting the power grid and various other utilities, all prior to the culminating of kinetic forces and the ability to basically take away the eyes and ears and all the senses of a country from a cyber perspective in order to limit the amount of kinetic necessity from the opposing threat was a very, very interesting aspect. And Russia's done it multiple times now, both Estonia, in Georgia, recently in the Ukraine, and the annexation of Crimea. They've really perfected this capability set, and it's problematic in that unless your country has a significant cybersecurity capability or the ability to defend itself, you're open to this type of attack and these linked types of attack. It's also extremely worrisome for the United States because we are such a digitized society. Everything we do on a daily basis is on a computer or a smartphone or some other networked device that is open to exploitation, and our adversaries are fully aware of it. And while they haven't taken advantage of it yet, that doesn't necessarily mean they don't have the capability to. It's just the desire or the need hasn't been precipitated at this point. So, one of the main reasons why NATO set up the their cybersecurity headquarters in Estonia was because of that attack. The Talon manual, which is a kind of an outline of cybersecurity norms, rules, and regulations that kind of govern the way normal society will use cyberspace, was written based on the Estonia attacks in Estonia after that. So yeah, definitely their perspective on the world of cyber and how it affects day-to-day life. They have real world knowledge and have feared that or felt that the effects of that more so than the United States has. We recently just went through the Colonial Pipeline attack, and here on the East Coast, I'll tell you, it was pretty amazing to see a couple days of that pipeline being shut down, and society really kind of showing some flaws, if you will, carrying trash bags to fill up gas because they were so concerned about being able to get to work or get to where they needed to go. The lines were just ridiculous in order to get gas. And that was just a couple days. During the same time period, we had an attack on a meat packing plant that shut down meat production, and it delayed bacon, which is something I think we all can appreciate. So it's definitely something to be aware of, just simply because everything in this country runs on a digital platform or backbone in some form or fashion. Yeah,
for sure. But geez, I think you probably could have given a better interview with Mr. Ilves than I did. You have some in-depth knowledge there for sure. So definitely, to our audience, go back and check out that episode. And thanks for adding some additional color there, William. I'd like to turn to manpower and talent issues, which you touched on just a moment ago. And so I realized this new talent strategy plan 2030 just came out, but what's your hot take on all that?
So right off the jump, I'd say, definitely something that has been needed within the Marine Corps long-term, but specifically to get after force design 2030. The idea of force design 2030 and the pivot to China, and it's a revolutionary take on what the Marine Corps is going to do into the future. Getting rid of certain key aspects of Marine culture over the last 20 plus years of tanks and artillery tubes, and transitioning to a lighter force that's able to maneuver and bounce between different regions. The idea of being within the weapons engagement zone and being spotters for the naval force and the rest of the joint force in order to bring those forces in and compete against China and ultimately contend with their kinetic aspects it's a revolutionary shift for the Marine Corps. It's something that we haven't done, but it's funny that we haven't done it because it's very much in line with our maneuver doctrine. MCDP1 is, a quintessential doctrine for the Marine Corps that, every Marine lives and breathes this type of information. And yet this force design is such, it seems like it's a foreign concept to some, but in reality, it's something that we're uniquely qualified to do. And the Commandant is just shifting resources and capability sets in order to enact it. One of the things that he's realized throughout his writings and throughout his learning in regards to force design is the idea that the Marine Corps force of old is not going to be the force that's going to be capable of conducting these functions into the future. And that's where the talent management aspect comes into play. That strategy is, one of the key aspects of it is he realizes that the junior force that we have prided ourselves on for years, where 60% of the Marine Corps was between the ages of 18 and 25. Mm-hmm. That's not going to work in these new concepts where we might have a Marine or a small contingent of Marines located on an island in the South Pacific, in an expeditionary advanced based operation where they're alone and unafraid. They're cut off from the rest of the Marine Corps due to jammed communications or a cyber threat or some sort of electronic warfare attack that's going on in the region. And they still need to conduct operations. They still need to be able to perform their mission on behalf of the Marine Corps and in some cases on behalf of the Joint Force. So the maturity of the Marine needs to be increased. We need to start cultivating a more mature force that's not only technically savvy, but cognitively capable of making the decisions based on the commander's intent. That's something that has been entrusted to our senior leaders for so long, but the realization that it might be an NCO or a staff NCO or a junior captain or lieutenant out there alone and unafraid with a squad of Marines, and they've got their finger on the button ready to attack or defend based on whatever rules of engagement that are in play at the time. And that's a different mindset than what we've had in the past. A lot of the other aspects of the talent management, the funny thing is when I was reading it, I was looking at it going, well, yes, no kidding. We should absolutely do this. And the fact that we have to put out a policy to kind of reshape the Marine Corps thinking on this is telling on how the Marine Corps has conducted manpower in the past. And it's just not going to work for the future fight. The advanced peer competitive nature of China and, Russia's coming into their own and Iran coming into their own and North Korea coming into their own. We need to advance our way of thinking in regards to manpower. We cannot just have a junior force that's running around, kicking ass and taking names. And I apologize for the language, but that's what we're known for as Marines. And what we need to be known for in the future is this, cognitive capable force that's able to think through and analyze problems and situations using advanced technologies that are unheard of right now, but will be a staple in the future. And that's we can't think of today's problem sets with today's technology and think that that's the future of warfare. We have to think quantum computing. We have to think advanced intelligence and machine learning. We have to think about machines capable of performing functions, swarming drone technologies that will allow us to advance and conduct warfare in a completely different way than what we've typically done in the past. And you need a special type of Marine to do that.
Right. Well, all that's very well said. If our audience can visualize for all the military services, there's a rank structure, and there's more junior personnel than there are senior personnel, and it looks like a pyramid. And the Marine Corps, as I understand it, tends to be, or has always been, the youngest force on average. And so the pyramid for the Marine Corps, if you compare it to the Navy or the Air Force or the Army, et cetera, the pyramid for the Marine Corps has the widest base, right? But now the Commandant is saying, well, no, we're going to be narrowing that base while either keeping the force the same size or maybe even reducing the overall force numbers. I think that is still under discussion. But what that does is it has the effect of increasing the average age of the Marine Corps, but simultaneously it increases the experience base of the Marine Corps. So retaining more Marines makes a more mature force, which is more has the opportunity to be more technologically savvy to prosecute the missions, as you were just describing, William. Would you say that sounds about right?
Absolutely, John. And I think you hit it spot on. We are very much the junior force in the DoD, and the realization that we can't continue in the future fight that way is one of the big drivers for talent management. The retention aspect is an interesting point. There's a retention challenge going on right now within the Marine Corps, within the manpower side, where they're actually petitioning for ideas on different, non-money related retention incentives that could be offered to Marines that would, get them to stay in the Marine Corps past, 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, especially with the new retirement system coming online, that 20-year carrot for enlisted Marines, well, enlisted and officer Marines, is no longer the carrot at the end of the stick. So we need to shift our ability to maintain Marines over time. And some of the ideas that have been floated around is education incentives with service paybacks, the ability to opt out of promotions. And this is not just a Marine Corps-ism, it's common in industry and the DoD alike, is we continue to promote because this Marine at this particular rank is stellar, like could be the best Marine in his field, in his job. He absolutely should be promoted to the next rank. And then we put him in a job or in the next rank that is completely different than what he was previously doing, and he fails miserably. Is that the Marine's fault, or is that the Marine Corps' fault for promoting him into something that maybe he wasn't the best suited for? Whereas had he stayed in the position that he was, we would have been able to suck out so much more goodness from that Marine based on that current rank. But the only incentive that we can provide at that time, right now, we promote so that way you can increase money, which increases livelihood and so on and so forth, prestige and power. But we need to start thinking about it, and the talent management strategy gets after this a little bit, where it's the idea of maybe Marines could deny promotion or deny a look at promotion into the future because they're happy where they are, or maybe their current family situation doesn't allow for them to advance right now because maybe they're trying to have a baby, or maybe they just had a baby, or maybe there's some health concerns within the family that elevating in rank might cause them to have to leave to another duty station. But the medical care at this particular place is really good for that spouse or child, or hell, even the Marine themselves. So there's definitely some aspects in regards to retention. Probably the biggest theme in the talent management is the idea and diversity and the inclusion of so many different ideas and people and different from different countries, different backgrounds, and using the diverse nature of the Marine Corps. We're definitely a look at society as a whole. The DoD is in nature, but within the Marine Corps, being able to expand that diverse culture and expand our ability to leverage that diverse culture, it's definitely one of the hallmarks of the talent management strategy.
Yeah, you said a lot there. I definitely agree with you that it's important for the United States military to reflect the society that we represent, that we support and defend. It's the military civilian divide is a topic of study within social studies, and so it's important that the military not drift too far away from the society that it represents. And it sounds like this plan is definitely looking to maintain that parity. I'd like to take another beat on education. You William, obviously have been able to avail yourself of various different educational opportunities while you've been on active duty. How do you think that education going forward is going to be a part of the talent management strategy? Or do you perceive new opportunities for enlisted service members to follow in your footsteps, I guess, for pursuing advanced degrees?
Oh, John, I really do hope so. I will say, reading through the little bit that I've read through the talent management strategy, again, just came out yesterday, so I'm still scrubbing through it and analyzing it. But I do believe there is. I'd say right now, there are more enlisted Marines that at any time in the Marine Corps history that have degrees, whether that be undergraduate, graduate level degrees, more enlisted Marines than any time in history, and that's an interesting dynamic that the Marine Corps needs to come to grips with. The other services have been dealing with this for a little while as well, and in my opinion, they've handled it a little bit differently, to where the Navy and the Air Force, it's almost a requirement when you get into the senior enlisted ranks that you have a degree, because the expectation is, how are you to be a senior enlisted advisor to an officer if you're not on par educationally with that individual? How can you have the analytical discussions back and forth to be able to think through a problem set if one of you is at a deficit because you weren't afforded the opportunity to get a degree? So I definitely think from an education standpoint that that understanding is changing, and I also think the ability to expand certain programs that already exist. There already are enlisted programs within Naval Postgraduate School. There's transition programs from enlisted to officer within the Naval Academy. The Masters of Applied Science Cyberspace Operations out of the Naval Postgraduate School is a key program. The NSA offers enlisted education programs for intelligence professionals. So there's the degree completion program for staff NCOs is another key program. So there's definitely programs in place, and those, for all intents and purposes, are looking to be expanded within the talent management strategy. Also, the tuition assistance. I'm a byproduct of tuition assistance for my bachelor's degree. I probably would not have done it without tuition assistance, and have a bachelor's degree that was completely covered because of that. So there's definitely programs out there, and the expansion of those programs is only going to make a better enlisted force that is only going to make the Marine Corps better. So I'm truly hopeful that the Marine Corps adopts some of the methodologies that, like the Air Force and like the Navy, and really capitalizes on their senior enlisted cadre that has the educational background to really dig in deep. Right now, there are 18 Marines that have doctorates or PhDs within the Marine Corps on the enlisted side. 18 out of 100,000 Marines on the enlisted side, 100,000 plus. And to be honest with you, every single one of those Marines, we're doing it on our own because there's no PhD programs for enlisted Marines. So I'm really hopeful that within talent management, the expansion and the idea, the understanding, a subject matter expert, when you say subject matter expert, you're thinking of two people. Absolutely thinking of your warrant officer community, your chief warrant officer community. Within the Marine Corps, that's kind of their responsibility. But the other aspect to that is the enlisted Marine. The enlisted Marine is a specialist within his or her field, whereas an officer is a generalist. So capitalizing on that specialist mentality, a Marine that does computers day in, day out, that's their job within the Marine Corps, and then advancing them through both training and education is going to be key moving forward. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, on top of education, the advancement in training that the talent management strategy is going to be bringing to bear. There's a lot of different training avenues that are going to be approached. One of them specifically is an idea of continuous learning. TCOM right now and MNRA are going through and trying to work out how they would transition from the current model of training that the Marine Corps does to one of continuous learning, to where a Marine might go to their entry-level school for, right now it might be 6 months, but what would it look like if that Marine went to entry-level school for only 2 months? But the expectation was that the 4 months of school that he would have received at his entry-level school is spread out over the course of a year or 2 years, and it's forcing that Marine to continuously learn throughout his life cycle in order to advance himself and be a better trained Marine across multiple subjects.
I'd like to wrap up, if we may, William, to rewind and go back to the top. And you are, as I understand it, the first Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Deputy Commandant for Information. Can you talk about that role and its novelty, but also its necessity? And just take that in whatever direction you think is productive.
No, I appreciate the question, John. And yes, I am the first Senior Enlisted Advisor for the Deputy Commandant for Information. But I like to say I'm the first selected, but we have multiple senior enlisted within the Deputy Commandantship that have provided, this role to the Deputy Commandant over time. I'm just the first selected. We definitely, within the Deputy Commandant on Information, I provide the enlisted perspective on behalf of the DC. The Deputy Commandant for Information has roughly about 500 personnel underneath it. Many of them enlisted. We have 17 senior enlisted Marines throughout the various divisions within the DC, and a central voice of those senior enlisted directly to the Deputy Commandantship is probably the singular impact that I'm able to provide, rather than multiple avenues of approach coming at the DC all at the same time. I provide a singular voice. Interestingly enough, and leading back to the education aspect that I was talking about earlier, my PhD allows me a different analytical rigor than some of my peers, in that I'm able to have those deep cognitive conversations with the general because of my education. And we can sit down and analyze a problem set, throughout the course of a meeting or throughout the course of a discussion, in order to come to an end state that, may not have, is going to be a different perspective than if it was just a series of officers sitting around a table. I think that's probably one of the unique aspects that I bring to the table, being in the front office as the only enlisted Marine, is, I'm gonna approach everything from an enlisted standpoint. From the jump, I am an enlisted Marine and have been for 24 years, but because of my education, because of my upbringing, because of where I've been within the Marine Corps, I also have an understanding of, some of the, how officers would analyze problem sets. I've been, one of my master's degree is from the Naval Postgraduate School, which is typically an officer curriculum. So I'm familiar with some of the teachings that they have to go through, which adds an interesting aspect to my dynamic. So I would say, as a senior enlisted for the DC, it's both an honor and privilege. I'm extremely happy to serve on behalf of the enlisted Marines within the DC. It has definitely been an honor, and I look forward to continuing in the future with that. And I definitely think, from a DC perspective, I don't want to speak for him, but I kind of things that he has mentioned to me is, the difference in the way I approach a problem set comparatively to, the officers around me is something that he values. And I think from his perspective, he likes the ability to get the enlisted perspective without having to go through multiple enlisted Marines, having a singular, collection point, if you will, to talk through problem sets. And then also, that same individual being able to think through problems at an advanced analytical rigor is also productive for him as well.
All right. Well, I think the Deputy Commandant for Information and the Marine Corps in general are fortunate to have you and people like you helping to steer the ship through these challenging times. And we wish you and your colleagues Godspeed. And with that, Master Gunnery Sergeant William Hess, thank you so much for being on the Cognitive Crucible.
John, thank you very much. It really has been an honor and a privilege. I really appreciated it.
The Cognitive Crucible is the only podcast dedicated to increasing interdisciplinary collaboration between information operations practitioners, scholars, and policymakers. To find out more about the Information Professionals Association, visit us at information-professionals.org. Please support our podcast by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review.